what am I actually doing with my life? Maybe you've asked yourself that question before. Late at night, lying in bed, scrolling through your phone, watching other people move forward while you stay exactly where you are. You thought you'd be much further ahead by now. You had plans, goals, potential, maybe lots of potential. But somehow you're still waiting for motivation, waiting for confidence, waiting for the right opportunity. And while you're waiting, life keeps moving. Other people build careers, start families, take risks, make mistakes, grow. Meanwhile, a part of you keeps saying, one day I'll get serious. One day I'll start. One day I'll become the person I know I can be. But what if the problem isn't laziness? What if the problem isn't discipline? What if a part of you never actually grew up? A part that still wants the rewards of adulthood without the responsibilities that come with it. Psychology has a name for this, the man-child. And here's the disturbing part. Most people think the man-child is simply immature, but many psychologists notice something unexpected. Many man-children were once highly intelligent, highly talented children. In fact, the very thing that made them special may be the reason they're stuck today. And once you understand why, you'll start seeing this pattern everywhere. Carl Jung described a psychological pattern called the Puer Aeternus, the eternal boy. This person often appears full of promise, creative, intelligent, curious, full of possibilities. But there is one problem. He never fully arrives. He is always preparing for life, planning life, imagining life, thinking about life, but rarely living it. He tells himself, this isn't my real career. This isn't my real relationship. This isn't my real life. The real life is coming later, after he feels ready, after he feels confident, after he finds the perfect opportunity. The problem is that readiness becomes an illusion. Years pass, then more years, and eventually the future he was waiting for quietly becomes the past. Jung called this the provisional life, a life lived in permanent preparation. And what makes this trap so dangerous is that it often feels intelligent. You convince yourself you're being careful, strategic, patient, but underneath all of that is a frightening possibility. You're not preparing for life. You're avoiding it. And the reason why intelligent people fall into this trap more often than others may surprise you. Most people assume the man-child is the least capable person in the room, but psychology suggests something very different. Many man-children were once gifted children. Maybe they learned quickly. Maybe they received praise from teachers. Maybe everyone told them, "You're special. You'll do great things. You have so much potential." At first, that sounds positive, but it can create a hidden psychological trap. Instead of building their identity around effort, they build it around potential. They begin to believe that being talented is who they are. And this creates a psychological problem that often doesn't appear until adulthood, a problem that can quietly steal decades from a person's life. Because adulthood doesn't reward potential, it rewards action. The real world doesn't care how smart you are. It cares what you do. And for someone who grew up feeling special, this can be painful. Because suddenly there are people who work harder, people who are more disciplined, people who achieve more. The child who once felt extraordinary starts feeling ordinary, and that's where the next trap begins. The biggest problem isn't failure, it's potential. And what makes this so dangerous is something most people never realize. Potential can become a prison. Think about it. As long as you never truly commit to something, your potential remains untouched. You can always tell yourself, if I really tried, I'd succeed. If I really wanted to, I could do it. If I started tomorrow, everything would change. Potential becomes a protective shield. It protects your ego from reality, because reality can be uncomfortable. Reality gives feedback. Reality exposes weaknesses. Reality doesn't care about dreams. It cares about results. And that's exactly why many people remain stuck. Not because they lack ability, but because they are protecting the fantasy of being exceptional. As long as the dream remains a dream, it can remain perfect. The moment it enters reality, it becomes vulnerable. And that vulnerability is terrifying. But this fear doesn't disappear. It simply changes shape. And for many men, it turns into an addiction that looks completely harmless. That's where the real trouble begins. Most people think comfort is harmless. But for the man-child, comfort can become an escape. Gaming, scrolling, streaming, endless entertainment. None of these things are inherently bad. The danger lies in why they are being used. Because sometimes comfort isn't relaxation, it's anesthesia. Every distraction helps you avoid hearing the same uncomfortable question. What am I actually doing with my life? For a few hours, the discomfort disappears. The game feels exciting. The videos feel entertaining. The fantasy feels satisfying. But eventually reality returns. And nothing has changed. The goals remain unfinished. The dreams remain distant. The potential remains unused. Comfort doesn't solve the problem. It simply delays the confrontation. But comfort is not the deepest trap. In fact, the deepest trap is something many people spend their entire lives running from. Many people think the man-child fears responsibility. That's only partly true. The deeper fear is becoming ordinary. Because commitment forces reality, a career forces reality, a relationship forces reality, marriage forces reality, responsibility forces reality. Once you commit, there are no more endless possibilities. There is only the path you've chosen. And that's frightening, because now your life can be measured. Now your abilities can be tested. Now your weaknesses become visible. The fantasy disappears. Reality begins. So the man-child often keeps one foot outside the door. Just in case something better appears. Just in case commitment becomes uncomfortable. Just in case he fails. But while he's keeping his options open, something else is happening. Time keeps moving, and eventually time becomes impossible to ignore. When life doesn't unfold the way we imagined, we need an explanation. Sometimes that explanation becomes a story. The economy, society, parents, bad luck, the wrong opportunities. And yes, sometimes those things matter. Life isn't always fair, but the man-child often turns circumstances into excuses, because excuses protect him from responsibility. If the problem is always external, then he never has to change. If the world is responsible, then he isn't. And that's comforting. But it's also dangerous, because every excuse gives away power. Every excuse places control outside yourself. And eventually you wake up one day and realize something painful. The years are gone, and the life you were waiting to start never started. And this realization leads to the final trap. This is the moment many people fear most, not failure, regret. Watching younger people accomplish things you once dreamed about. Watching friends move forward. Watching opportunities disappear. Watching time do what it always does. Keep moving. One day becomes someday. Someday becomes later. Later becomes never. And suddenly the question changes. It is no longer, what should I do with my life? It becomes, why didn't I start sooner? And that realization can be heartbreaking, but it can also be the beginning of something powerful, because awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. The first step is accepting something most people resist. You do not need to be extraordinary to build a meaningful life. You need consistency. The second step is learning that confidence comes after action, not before it. Most people wait until they feel ready. Successful people start before they feel ready. The third step is letting go of your attachment to potential. Stop protecting the fantasy. Test yourself in reality. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to be average at the beginning. Allow yourself to learn. Because maturity begins when you stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I never try? The tragedy of the man-child is not that he lacks talent. It's that he spends years protecting his potential instead of using it. He waits, plans, imagines, dreams, while life quietly moves forward without him. The hardest lesson in adulthood is realizing that nobody is coming to save you. And the moment you truly accept that, everything changes. Because the moment you stop waiting for motivation, stop waiting for certainty, stop waiting for permission, you finally reclaim your life. The moment you take responsibility, something changes. You stop being a spectator and become a participant. Your real life doesn't begin someday. It begins the moment you stop hiding from it. The question is, will that moment be today?